For those who don't know, I'll just fill you in quickly. I used to be an attorney. I have a law degree, I have an MBA, I have a CPA. I worked for a large public accounting firm. I was a CPA, and I left there to go into private practice, the private practice of law. And I started in private practice of law working at a spare room in my house. And I was there for about 14 months. It was a great way to kind of get started, keep overhead low, figure out, the lay of the land, what I was going to do. But at one point there, towards the end of that first year, I decided, okay, I'm going to hire somebody to help me out. A lot of things were happening at that point, and I wanted to hire somebody, and I didn't want to parade people in and out of our house. Newly married to my wife, and so I found an office space. I lived near a suburb of Gahanna, so I was looking for an office space in Gahanna, and I found one. It was a small house. I don't think the house was 500 square feet, to be perfectly honest. And but hey, it was an office, and it kind of allowed me to take that next step and to have an employee. And it was close to the post office. It was close to the bank that I used. It was just a lot of great things about that particular office, and it was exciting for me. And I was part of what's now Am Spirit Business Connections, and used a lot of my contacts within the organization to help me with things. So I was excited. People were excited, and one of my fellow chapter members stopped by one day just to see the office, and he was in payroll, and so we did a lot of business together, referred a lot of clients back and forth. It was a good relationship. So he came just to visit, and we just sat there and we talked for a while. And I walked him out to his car, and I moved in late January, early February of 20. Oh, I don't even remember the year. I think it was 1996. It was before my son was born, my oldest son. Um, Neither here nor there. But at any rate, I walked him out to his car, and it wasn't much of a driveway. I think it could barely fit two cars. I walked him out, and he pointed to the house next door. He said, "That accountant over there is a jerk. He's a jerk. Last year, he threw me out of his office." I'm like, "Really? Threw me out of his office?" "Yeah, he's just a jerk. I was bringing him cookies, and he just threw me out of his office." Payroll people, they try to, have relationships with accountants to refer them clients. And I was kind of taken back like that. Okay, I just got this office. I'm excited. Who's my neighbor? And it was a small house. This is a commercial area, so it was a small house accounting firm next door. And I've got my office, and I'm this small legal practice. Um, and I was just kind of like, okay, what's going to be happening? Now, again, this is early February, and if you're familiar with Columbus, Ohio, or the Midwest, January, February, March, it's cold. You drive to where you're going, you get out of your car, you get inside as quickly as you can. You don't linger about outside. So I didn't really see this accountant for a long time. Didn't really know who it was. I'm busy. I'm not really trying to spy on this person that I was told was a jerk. And but got beyond April, and the tax season's over, and I see this accountant, this jerk, if you will. And we just kind of waved at one another. The houses are far enough apart that you just really didn't even say anything. It was a relatively large yards, but we would just kind of wave, and I'm like, okay, when's this going to hit me? When do I get in the crosshairs of this jerk? And I'm just like, at this point, I've kept my distance. Um, but as we got into May, it was getting a little warmer out, and one day I was coming into the office, and before I could gather my things to go inside, he called out to me. He says, "Can you help me?" He was trying to move a canoe and get a canoe loaded on top of a van. And of course, I'm somewhat anxious going over there to help him with this canoe. I don't know. All I know is what somebody's told me. This guy's a jerk. That was all I had. And they threw me out of his office. And so I went over there, and we didn't say a whole lot. We just really kind of got down to business. The business of lifting a heavy canoe, as a wooden canoe, on top of this van. But once we had positioned it into place, we'd introduced ourselves, and his name was Mike Highland. Of course, I just didn't expect that he would throw me off his property like that. I just helped him load a canoe on. But I was certainly a bit anxious, and started to get to know him. He was a 20 plus year resident business owner in the community. Again, this is the mid 90s, so he'd been around since the mid 70s. Um, and learned that that was his office next door. And he also lived there. He was divorced. He had kids that were grown. Um, and, it's, you know, a friendship ensued. He's just, we would see each other, and rather than, the weather's nice, rather than just saying hi, I would walk across the yard, or he would walk across the yard, or we'd meet each other halfway and just have a have a conversation about, hey, how's business? And of course, he learned I was an attorney. I learned about his accounting practice and the different types of clients he had. He did a lot of, he had a lot of Amish and Mennonite clients, and so on and so forth. And it was a fun relationship, to be perfectly honest. At one point, shortly thereafter, I think it was the next winter, he fainted. And it turned out that he had cancer. Um, and it was somewhat of an aggressive form of cancer, and he wasn't given a whole lot of time. And he asked me to help him with his will. He was remarried at that point, and still friends with his now widow. So I'm kind of getting ahead of myself here. But they gave him 6 to 12 months to live, so he was kind of in a panic to try and get everything done. Helped him with his will, helped him sell his business. And we had a lot of encounters. Before all of this, we'd probably had 18 months of encounters. Um, and over the years, over the time that I did work with him, in fact, he was selling his business and he offered to sell it to me. Hey, Frank, I'll sell you the business, I'll sell you the house. I didn't want to get back into accounting. I didn't, his house was nice. It would have been a neat place to have an office. I drive by there often, but it kind of was a package deal, and I didn't want to have an accounting practice. Um, but we had lots of interactions, and you know, he would refer me a lot of clients. He would introduce me to a lot of people, other attorneys in town that could refer me clients. A woman who owned a title company was referring me clients. It was just amazing. He was anything but a jerk to me. I would just pop over and he would take the time, and we would sit and we would talk and have wonderful conversations. And he loved to canoe or kayak, and his wife was into those sorts of things too, hiking. It was just really a great, you know, really kind of a great relationship, if you will, a very professional but great relationship. Got to know his kids, still running into them from time to time. But at one point, I asked him, I said, "Hey, I got to tell you, I had this conversation with this. I got this conversation with this payroll guy. I didn't mention who it was, and he said he had a rather rough encounter with you, and you threw him out of his office." And Mike, in a very unapologetic way, said, "Yeah, I did. I did." Um, he says those people show up unannounced at the busiest times of year, right? So the busiest time of year that these things are happening, they're showing up with cookies, and they want me to just stop what I'm doing to have a conversation with them. I threw him out. I don't have time for you. Get out of here. And he was very unapologetic about it. I'm like, okay, I'm okay with that, right? I'm okay with that. But he explained the situation. Hey, I was a jerk. But here are the circumstances, and it kind of gave me a whole new light on that. um, Obviously, I mentioned that I had done his will. I was not written into his will. That's a big no-no for attorneys. You're not allowed to write yourself into somebody's will. So if anyhow, I won't get into the legal implications of that. I wasn't in his will, but what he did leave me with, what Mike left me with, because when he passed away, he actually had a 5-year courageous battle with cancer. I mean, they gave him 6 to 12 months, and he fought it. And experimental treatments, and he fought it. He fought it hard, um, and gave it five good years. And he was courageous about it as well, because I remember him telling me early on. He goes, "Frank, people die every day. Don't feel sorry for me. People die every day." And it's interesting that he died about a year after 9/11, and I thought about that conversation because it had happened 4 years earlier. All those people who died, who didn't expect to die, who didn't get to say goodbye, who didn't get to do the things with loved ones. And he had all those opportunities and took advantage of them. But I wasn't in his will. But he left me with a lesson, and I think this is the lesson relative to forming an opinion about somebody else. When you form an opinion about somebody else, do it yourself. Don't rely on what other people say. I was hung up for not terribly long, but it was kind of in the back of my mind for the longest time that, hey, this guy is a jerk. And that was unfair to him. It was unfair to me. If I would have known otherwise, I might have just gone over there and introduced myself sooner. Um, and just form your own opinions. I mean, stop and think about it for a second. Yeah, he threw that payroll person out. And he felt justified in doing. Maybe he could have done it a different way. We can debate that all we want. But that payroll person's encounter with him was not representative of him. And other people's encounter with people that they're going to share information with you about are not representative of really either person. There are, every day is different. People go through different things. People interact with different people in different ways. How I approach people is different than how other people approach people. And so I'm going to get a different reaction. And I'll approach people a day that might not be a particularly good day for somebody, or it might be a particularly great day for them. You don't know. So you don't know what other people's encounters with individuals are like. So you can't rely on their opinions of people. You need to really draw your own conclusions when it comes to interacting with other people, with the relationships in your life. Certainly, people are going to have input. They're going to tell you things. What are the facts? This guy's an accountant. He's really busy during the tax season. Maybe steer clear during those times. Yeah, I knew to steer clear. I knew he was busy. I got it, right? I lived in that world. It's a busy, stressful time. Everybody wants their taxes done. They want them done today, and they don't want any surprises. You know it, and you can't fulfill all of that. And that's just accountants, and everybody has those stressful moments in their life. But those are more of the facts. But when it really comes to people's opinions about others, you need to draw your own conclusions. You're going to have a different relationship with people, and if you take the time to do this and to figure out for yourself how you interact with people and what your own opinion is of people, chances are the relationship will be better, faster than when you're relying on what other people have to say.